Here we are, Thursdays at 11 a.m., our QT conversations. These are our opportunity as qualified tutor members to explore what's working well in our tutoring, what we need support with, what we notice, and have one of those sort of open-ended, rambling conversations that we love because they take us places and they bring community and connection. Today, we're going to do something special and a little bit different in honor of World Tutors Day, which was this Tuesday and was an absolute joy. And we've actually decided, Odette and I, that we should be celebrating tutors for all of July. So we will be posting to social media profiles of our members throughout July. So you'll be able to see what wonderful looks like as far as we're concerned. But today we're going to do something slightly different. We're going to talk about students. We spend a lot of time talking about parents. We spend a lot of time talking about what's working well in our subject. We spend some time talking about the business of tutoring and marketing and all of those things. But I felt that today it would be worthwhile to zone back into what it's all about and who it's all for. And so we're going to talk about our students and we're going to celebrate the wins of our students and the wonderful experiences that we've had over the past years of building students up and really sort of capture all those yummy feelings. So I think this is going to be a really, really lovely conversation. I do just want to share with you before we start, the reason why we don't always talk about students is because I have learned that the best way to make change is to support the adults who are supporting the children. So when we talk about our own well-being, when we talk about our own professional development, it's always with the intention of supporting the young people who are at the heart of things. I learned as a school leader that I had a much greater impact by making sure that the teacher was doing well so they could make sure that the 30 students are doing well. So that's what we usually do. But today, I want to get right into the nitty gritty of things and I want those yummy, heartwarming stories. So, who wants to kick us off?
I'm happy to start, actually. I know I shared a text that I got about one of my students, but there is another text that I would love to read out because it also really warmed my heart. So I won't say her real name. I'm just gonna call her A. A said the exam was delicious and that you were wonderful and she loves you. Two questions in particular were this emoji. I think she may have even been on a strange strange last exam high. Thank you for all your help. I feel bad for not trying harder to get A to have you sooner. Who knows what you could have achieved? She may have even grown to love maths. I will let you know her results. Wishing you a lovely summer. So that was like so lovely. You know, it's great to receive that. I've received other things, and a lot of it, I think, like I said before, a lot of it about increasing confidence and how they wish they'd done it sooner, and also for the parents, how they wish they'd had it for themselves as well. You know,
Let's just dial back though. Tell us the story of that student. Tell us who A is.
So she, the parent got recommended from another parent that has always recommended me to other people for probably for the last 6 or 7 years. So she came to me, but she came to me 3 months before the exams.
Everybody has the same feeling in this room.
And it was just, you know, it was just a really lovely report. She was, the student was really up for it. And this is a theme with a lot of my students, actually, that they actively do want to get to be tutored, maybe because it's the age group that I deal with. I always make sure that it's actually their decision and they're not resenting it. And I think that helps a lot. I know kids who resent being tutored also probably need to be tutored, especially if they have, you know, for whatever reason. I don't always tend to do that because I think everyone has a different personality, so it doesn't suit me. I have to come halfway and the student has to come halfway, and that's how it works for me. Anyways, that's how it worked. We had a good report, and I think a lot of the things with supporting students and children is that maybe it's part of our tutor personalities that we also remember how we are as children ourselves and what we liked and what we needed. And that is really important. And I think that's common for everybody. If you know what you wanted as a teen, you're very, you're likely to actually give that to another teen because it's so important. And quite frankly, I might be 44, but obviously I'm 22. So, and I think that's the same with everybody. So you
I'm
always
really 16.
exactly. I was gonna say, but I thought 22 was.
I wish I was 22.
So you always remember what that's like, and you always remember what you really wanted and what you really needed. And I think that kind of informs me with a lot of my students.
It's lovely. And I can hear that sort of whole relatability piece over there. Dee, what do you have up your sleeve for us?
I took on a student and we only ended up with 6 sessions of maths before the GCSE. She did the GCSE the first time in 2022 at school, the local secondary school to me, then went to college to do beauty therapy. She retook it a year ago and didn't get the grade 4. And then she started dating a lad who I tutored until last summer. And then I wish she'd been referred sooner. I wish that this lad had piped up a bit sooner. But they came to me, and we only had 6 sessions. I've talked about this in other conversations about the panic I felt about what could I do in those 6 sessions. And I had some wonderful input from other tutors, including Claire. I think we might even have had. Did I gather you in a Zoom? We had a chat about it, I think, and it was just a wonderful community. Reassured me that you can only do what you can do. But when the final exam had taken place, I messaged into the WhatsApp group and asked how it had gone. And I got this message from the student. Hi Dee, yes, I am really happy with how the exam went. It went a lot better than I thought it would. I answered all of the questions and I understood most of them, which I am thrilled about. Which was just so brilliant. And then separately from Mum, I asked her, I said how pleased I was about how positive Kay had been about the exam. And Mum said she looked so relaxed when she got in the car, so that speaks volumes. Thank you so much for helping her confidence and understanding.
Ah,
So if I had done nothing else in
yes,
terms of her mindset, then I have made a difference. Whether I really want her to get the grade 4, I really hope that happens for her because she's finishing her college course. She's now applying for jobs, and obviously that's really important. But if I have made just a small difference to her mindset, then I'm happy.
what a lovely thing. And when she showed up with you, she must have had so much baggage. Was she helpful? How did you help her?
Well, it hadn't been easy in this second year at college. The maths teacher had been absent quite a lot, so the actual support she was getting in college was not as it should be. So, if she'd been getting, 3 or 4 hours maths a week and the necessary exam prep, then I would have felt less stressed about the whole thing. So we just focused in on some of the areas that I knew would be important, making her confident with her times table facts, dealing with the basics, factors of numbers, multiples of numbers, just being happy with numbers, not being scared of
Oh,
numbers. What is a prime number? What is a square number? What does it mean when it wants this? Understanding some of the terminology. We really just focused in on that. So there was so many gaps that appeared through those sessions, which I just didn't have the time to fill with the greatest will in the world. Georgina really needs to sort out this time dilation device. She really needs to get that sorted. But every time she turned up, she was clearly happy that we were working together. Her confidence grew. For all my students, I stopped them answering a question with a question. When I ask them something, they say, "Is it?" And I look at them and they go, "Oh, it's this." And if it's not the right answer, then we explore it, and that's all good. So it was a stressful 6 weeks, 6, 7 weeks. but and I'm very anxious, particularly when the results come out in August for her particularly. But I know I've made a difference. I know I've made a difference. It's not all the difference I would want to have made, but I know I've made a difference.
Gorgeous, so gorgeous. I'm so happy for her. What a lovely thing. Jan, would you like to tell us about one of your students?
Yeah, I think I'm very lucky. Most of my students are super lovely, and I feel like I'm a friend to them instead of just a tutor or a teacher. And I think it's actually one of the best ways to teach students. When you have that personal connection, they would treat you more warmly, and also they're more willing to take your advice. They're more active in learning. So yeah, I feel like with most of my students, I have like a friend teacher relationship with them. But also, I have some boys who I just feel like a little bit hard to get along with. It. I don't know whether some of you have the
Yeah,
same
we're with you. We're with you. Yeah.
experience. It's just like so hard to get their attention during the class. I don't know whether they already formed a habit when it comes to online lessons. They're used to opening other tabs, like watching YouTube videos, whatever. Yes, I just feel like I'm trying to engage them with games, with like videos, etc. But still, their mind is drifting away during the class. Yeah, but it's more common in a group class. I think maybe one of the reasons why Dee doesn't like group class is because you don't get that very personal connection with each student in the group.
Yeah.
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 But mostly, yeah, with other students, they're
Remind
very
us how old
lovely.
your students are.
Um, their age ranges from 8 to 15 years old.
You see,
Yeah.
because when you first described that warm relationship, it felt very feminine. It felt
Mhm.
like I was
Exactly.
right. And I can anticipate that the boys find it more difficult to access that relationship. Dee, you're
Yeah.
saying you have the same problem with girls, that you relate more easily with boys.
Well, I love sport, and that's normally a way
Mm.
in for me. I had the lad who's now dating the student I've just talked about. When he first turned up, he was clearly quite anxious about it. But I have a photo on the sideboard in the area where I teach of Ben Stokes, arms raised when he scored the winning runs in the Test match in 2019. He plays cricket, and when he saw that and we connected on that line, that was it. He was more than happy to stay and to come back. But with girls, because I don't describe myself as girly. I can't relate to girls in the same way. I have one student in particular, and I'm getting there, but it's there's aspects of her interest in things which I'm struggling with. However, she is into Muay Thai boxing, and all the family do it. So I've had to do some research, and yeah, so yeah, again, it's through sport, but
Love
often with the
it.
girls, it's more difficult. But yeah, it's a learning experience for me. I mean, I'm enjoying the challenge of finding a way in. You're not going to beat me. I'm going to find a way to make that connection with you. And I totally endorse what Jana said about being a friend to students. A student I saw yesterday, she's headed off to Gothenburg to compete in athletics. She's a very good field athlete, and she does all sorts of other things as well. And she said in our previous session how much she looks forward to that. I am the highlight of her week. She's not enjoying aspects of school, especially maths, but and oh, we have such a good relationship now. And her thank you note that she gave through World Tutors Day just blew me out of the water, because she
Go and have
used
a
the
look.
word mentor in there.
Oh, wait, can you find it?
Can I read it to you?
Please do. Claire, I'm
It
coming to you next, okay?
was So thank you for being such an amazing tutor and mentor to Elle. We are beyond grateful for all the dedication, care, support and mentoring you give her. She always enjoys the sessions with you. You make maths challenging and enjoyable, making her feel confident about her abilities. She looks forward to her sessions with you. And we are so grateful that we have you as her tutor. thank you for being part of Elle's journey.
Yeah.
And I know that Elle had a role in composing that, because when I thanked her for it yesterday, she said, "Yeah, Mum helped me write it."
Oh, isn't that gorgeous? And look at the smile on Dee's face. It's so funny, isn't it? Because it's so simple. And we start out in September absolutely intending to do that for every single student. But when it comes round and you hear it, oh,
I've been
delish.
working with her for about 2.5 years now. She goes into year 10 in September, so I'm, really excited about how things are going to develop. She's very anxious about it. She's at an international school in Dubai. Expectations are very high. Another student at a different school in Dubai, it's the same thing. They're already talking to these students about, oh yes, the mock exams. It's, they're already ramping up the expectations and the stress and things. So that's going to add another level to the relationship in terms of coaching them through what's going to be quite a stressful time for them.
Yeah. Levels of the relationship is such a gorgeous thing, isn't it? And to have that time to build that with her over years before, that 6 week, is from one extreme to the other, isn't it? Claire, go ahead. Tell us about, and get as nitty and gritty as possible. I want to hear about A Human.
A Human. Okay, I'm going to tell you about Human. So she started working with me in year 5, and she was very much, I can't. Math is hard. I can't. And every time we did something new, that internal story of I can't possibly do this, it's maths, was always there. And it
What
was
was
a
the
real...
behavior? Was it defiant? Did she
She wasn't defiant at all. She would just literally go, I can't do it. It's too hard. Can't do it. Can't do it. And I started working with her. She was one of my first when I opened my year 5 groups. But actually at first she was my only year 5, but I kept it as a group, but I still worked with her and waited for more to come. And it was a real mindset thing. And every time she did assessments at school, it all fell apart, and she was just not in a positive place with where she was at.
What was she like in other subjects?
Similar. So she's since been diagnosed with dyslexia. And so she was just finding everything such a struggle.
Yeah.
And so I worked with her all through for most part of her year 5. Some people joined the group and we carried on, but that mindset was still there. But then increasingly, I watched it change. And she got her diagnosis of dyslexia. So there were certain things I was then able to say to her, Mum, right, push for this support in the maths, because actually it's not that she can't. She tells herself she can't, but she can. So we really went through what Mum could, and I was telling Mum, go to school and say this, quote this at them. And in the end, we did get her some support. And gradually through year 6, because obviously they do like 30 billion mock tests throughout year 6, her standardized score went from 83 to 98, and she was coming to me and saying, I almost passed, and it was like but her whole self changed into, whenever I was presenting things to her, she didn't say I can't. And she was starting to ask me questions. And because I saw her in her group situation face to face, part of my differentiation in that group, because I had some greater depth kids as well, was she always sat next to me. And it's like that invisible differentiation, isn't it? And she just flourished. And obviously I don't know if she's passed her SATs because they've not had their results yet. But the fact that she was coming to me, she was so excited, having nearly passed, was just brilliant. And she wrote me a card.
Oh.
It says, I'm really happy that you've taught me maths over the last few months, and I want you to know that you're one of the best math teachers in the world. So thank you. And she'd also...
I think you might be right.
She did maths in the card. To show me some things that she'd learned, and it's just like lovely, because it was like
so confident.
Yeah, and it was once, because she knows, like, we worked out that one of the places she always fell down on was decimals.
Okay.
She didn't understand, like, if you were adding 37.2 and 3.25, line up the decimal points, and she was kind of aligning to the right all the time, so the decimal points were in it, and there were just certain things that we tweaked for her that just then meant other things fell into place.
Wow.
And actually, sometimes in the session, she was getting to places faster than the really bright natural ones because Hare and the Tortoise.
Yeah.
They were like, blah, 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 and I was like, yeah, no, you've made so many mistakes there. And she was like, plod, 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 and was getting there. And what is also really lovely is she started, so I finished with them the week before SATs. For their year 6 group, and both her and another girl in the group were like, oh no, we want to keep coming. And I said, well, we'll see. But they started a campaign for me to do a year 7 group for when they transition up to the high school. I'd turn up to sessions, well, I'd be waiting for them in the school library, and they'd come in with posters. Power up year 7. And it was ever so lovely. And I had to get her mum to write a reference for me for an award, and that was one of the things that she referenced. Like, her daughter was like, you have to put this in there that we want to carry on.
Oh.
So yeah, no, it's just lovely. And then at the other end of the scale, I had a year 11 who sent me a card saying, she turned up at my door, thank you for being such a brilliant maths tutor. I'm now much more confident in maths than before, and I'm certain my grade will be better thanks to your lessons.
Oh.
And apparently I'm
on
a
the front.
star.
Yeah, that's what
I
you
make
want, isn't it?
So no, it's been really lovely. And I think this time of year, it's my first proper sort of exam season that I've done. And I do feel a bit in limbo. And it's just like, I've just looked at this, because all my year 6s go to the same school. So I'm just like, when do they get their results?
Yeah, but there is that thing, we know with SATs, it really doesn't make a difference to the children, does it?
Mm.
But that journey that you've just taken them on, that makes a massive difference to her.
Yeah. And actually 4 out of that group, their parents have come to me and said, are you offering anything in year 7?
I think you are, aren't you?
I am, yeah, funnily enough.
Good.
Funny enough, I am. And it's actually really interesting now because I've got people coming to me and asking for certain groups. So when I'm doing my timetabling at the minute, I'm trying to factor in groups that have been asked for and are basically full before they're even there, which is just lovely.
How long has that taken to achieve? How many years?
18 months.
Good for you.
But I'm very local, and I think that I can just build that for myself in my little zone of Surrey. So yeah, no, it's been very, very fortunate how well things have taken off.
Now, Jenna, can you give us an example that's not maths related, please? I feel like I have to address the balance around here.
I love that because the 2 in particular that I had in mind, one of which is very much maths.
There you go.
Maths is king, maths rules.
I think maths is a huge tell, isn't it? In terms of mindset and all of that, it just gives itself away massively.
Oh, absolutely. And I think one of the conversations we've been having recently, and just by coincidence, I happened to listen to an old episode of a particular podcast that I love, that was from like Christmas 2020, and they're talking about maths and this idea that it's so normal to say, oh, I'm just bad at maths, and it's like a societal thing. And
don't get them started, Jenna, don't get them started.
So yeah, I think for me, I find it interesting the difference between clients who come to me very much with that maths focus compared to other subjects. But I think the parent that I've had the most feedback from in terms of, I'm trying to avoid using the word praise and gushing because it ended up being a little bit like that at times, but it was this level of honest feedback and
is it appreciation?
Yeah, and it was like this level of honesty and really, really balanced. And he'd do it every so often and just say, hey, this is how I think my child is doing. These are the changes that I've seen in my child. And this was an insanely bright girl. She had been, top of maths for everything in primary school, got to secondary school, really, really bad, really bullying teacher. And it was gone and she was failing. And in it must have been about less than 6 months that she then sat her end of year exams in year 10. She came to me first term-ish of year 10, and all of a sudden the teacher initially was not believing her that she was not cheating in her end of years, and then when Dad went and talked to them, they were like, wait, she's really put that much work in, because she went from failing to getting really, really excellent grades. And just hearing about, she's now, like, I had her in, she started with me in year 10, and she's just finishing her gap year and starting university in September, and hearing about how just the change in her trajectory. She was going to give up on science because she hated maths so much at that point. And now she's doing
back. I really want to hear about what happened. She was an exceptional high flyer in primary.
Yeah.
She had such a bad experience in the year 7 classroom that it totally broke her sense of maths. And she just,
every which way she was, and it broke her further than that. She started to withdraw. The level of I mean, she was always a fairly anxious person, not the most sociable, definitely autistic, kind of that sort of high achiever, very female stereotype of that level of perfectionism. And as she became more thwarted, as it were, and more almost destroyed by that teacher and by the subject, she had the teacher again in year 9. Year 8, she started to recover a little bit with having a half decent teacher. Year 9, she just gave up because it got that bad, and it affected her other subjects. Like, she started sciences, she started to just not be so involved with school, and it just, yeah, it
well, it really will have affected her sense of self as well, won't it? If she's always identified. I spoke with a tutor once who only discovered she was dyslexic in her 2nd year at Oxford, where she was studying medicine, because she couldn't keep up with the technical language, and she had a massive she crashed. She had a massive breakdown based on the fact that if she wasn't this high flyer, who was she? All her friends were those people, and she just all of a sudden lost herself, a sense of self. So you can imagine, for a young person hitting puberty and losing that confidence is immense.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
So tell us more. Tell us what the building her back up looked like.
So it was such a journey. Initially, they had never thought of an idea of anything other than just normal maths tutoring, that stereotypical do a bunch of worksheets. And we were working online as well.
Oh, so Jenna loved the worksheet.
Yeah. So she'd had a maths tutor, and I can't remember exactly why they stopped with them. I can't remember if they left or they just weren't feeling like she was getting enough out of it. Or I think it was like in person as well, and it was a bit flaky or something, I can't remember. And so when she started with me, she was like silent, really, really withdrawn, it was like pulling teeth. But the parents,
those sessions.
Yeah. And the parents really loved the way that I talked about what I was doing. And this is a time where I was really trying to establish to stop having such a wide breadth of stuff and kind of find my niche a little bit more, and just focus in how I talked about what I was doing as well, because I've always done things by word of mouth, and this was not through word of mouth, it was from one of the tutor sites. And I was really trying to find that identity and how I communicate what we are. And in that first call, there was something like, right, we love this idea of the way that you work from a relationship point of view, and we love that. And it started with, the standard once a week, and then we went up very quickly to twice a week, and we're doing maybe 3 lessons a week, and they would be about 2 hours each. But she was really struggling with her homework and the revision and everything for her other subjects. So I was like, oh, maybe I can help you a little bit with that, because I was doing the academic mentoring already. And the moment that she actually conceded and agreed to join, I think we'd framed it as revision sessions rather than academic mentoring, but it was very much intentionally academic mentoring. And we did the whole personal development side of it, and we just had that check-in every day. She suddenly you could see that relationship change. And I very much insist on regular face-to-face, even for online clients. So we do, initially it was once a term. And then once we started doing these regular sessions, they took off, and we were doing 7 days a week, just sitting there genuinely, both of us we'd check in, make a plan, do her planner, review of everything. We even started doing lesson logs. So she'd track her every day. At the end of the day, she'd join our sessions. She would do lesson logs. So she'd write out what she did in every single lesson at school and how she found it, what questions she had, all of that, what the homework was. We'd do it like really thoroughly. And over time, she started including little bits and sharing little bits about things that were going on with her friends, plans she had, and things like that. And it was a slow process. The moment we switched to doing even more regularly in person, they would drive up 2 hours every month, if not more regularly. Sometimes it was every other week. They would drive all the way up to me, and the change was amazing. She started to see, and she actually came and did some of our board games clubs and art clubs and all these things. And you could see that it was affecting everything. The way that she would, over time, talk to other young people in these groups. She went from being extremely withdrawn and really, really unsure. And yeah, she still needed some support, but you could see her deferring to me and having just this base level of a little bit of brightness, rather than, oh my God, don't look at me, don't stare at me, don't interact with me. It was like, yeah, I'm still not a social person, but I'm happy to chat. I'm happy to be part of this. And that just kept going. And then she went off to do her A-levels. And she went to a boarding school, and she was boarding during the week. So our sessions continued to that level, and kind of in some ways became more intense because we do some various bits of homework, because she started to trust me more. And so we do some of her English together. We'd have a debate about different things. We did exam skills in a really way that I approach exam skills, which is slightly clinical, but also very, very different and very much more deliberate than just do revision kind of approach that she'd had previously. And it was a really big challenge for her, and it is for many students, the way that I do my exam skills, because it can feel like I'm asking for so much, and it's so different to everything you've done before, to then doing it like that. And it's a real internal challenge, and it's something that we work through, and it's part of the journey, is facing that internal challenge. And you could see just, she was bubbly, she was coming, and she always had something to say. She was ready with things to say, having gone from spending an entire term avoiding anything personal, avoiding anything forthcoming. She was just chatting away and laughing and giggling, and really cheeky, and this really witty side came out, and she actually could make choices and go, and she was doing her own courses. She went and did online courses in neuroscience alongside her A-levels, because it was something that we had in common, of a common interest, and she loved it. And that just, she went off and spent I think it was about 2 months in Turkey by herself, in working in labs over there. And she is Turkish, from a Turkish background, but she's never really, I don't think, spent that much time in Turkey, and certainly not by herself without her parents. Yeah. And it's amazing. And I think that we talk a lot about relationships and that being a person, and the fact that tutoring and all of that is so personal. And I think that one of the reasons why I hate calling myself a tutor, and why I don't like calling myself a mentor either, is, and the only job title I can really settle on that actually in its definition suits what I do, is a governess. And I hate the genderedness of it, but governor is not something people associate with governess. And so, we're making it a gender neutral term. And that is because it is so personal. It is so much about life, and it's so much about that real understanding, that intrinsic understanding. And that, as a tutor, as someone who is there as this professional authority figure, can be really challenging to put yourself into that as well, because it's not just the young person sharing their personal things. In order to form that true level of mutual respect and relation, is that the right word? You have to share yourself as well. Absolutely. And I think that is something that's a really hard thing to do. And it is something that I'm always worried about for myself. Am I maintaining the right boundaries? Am I sharing too much of me in this? How am I making sure that the young person gets just enough of me and feels like I'm open and honest in order to benefit them without it being we have to have sometimes pauses of what they call Jenna law. They kind of some of the kids have ganged up on me, and they call it Jenna law because my background story is a lot of chaos, shall we say? And so I try to drop like the dramatic nuggets in very small little bits.
I love it. I'm sure they drink it up. Jenna, I've got an impossible question for you.
Yes.
I'm going to ask anyway, because I don't know if everybody else in the room felt it as well, but there was a real journey that we went on with that story of that young person just then. And I think the magic happened when you went to the academic mentoring and the structure and the safety net that you were able to provide became much more full on than a weekly session. And so my impossible question to you is, what would have happened if you hadn't been there? What would have happened if they'd stayed with the flaky once a week maths tutor and thought that that's the intervention that was needed?
I don't think it's an impossible answer. I think I can answer that. And I think the reason I can answer it is the reason why the other young person that I had in mind to kind of share about today is that person. Because the way that I do my end of year reviews, the end of term reviews, the end of program reviews, is to ask the young person, where do you think you would have been if you had stayed in that? And when we start, I always check in with them and say, hey, if nothing changes right now and we don't continue, which is absolutely fine because there is no obligation to work with me, I might not be the right fit for you. And if nothing else is put into place or you don't find anything else and things continue exactly as they are, where do you think you'll be? I've also worked with families and young people who leave it there and who do not continue, or they come to me when they have been letting it continue and it has gone too far. And for young people who was that particular young person that with that maths journey, for her specifically, I honestly am not 100% sure that she'd necessarily be person shaped. I mean, she wasn't person shaped, she was very much blob shaped, but for her specifically, I'm not.
This is Jenna law. This is Jenna law. There are people shaped and blob shaped spectrum. And when you are not functioning, you are blob shaped. And when you are doing well, you are human shaped. Just translating for you. We can get the transcript, but I'm not sure it will quite work out. Go on.
I do forget that I think it's the tisms, as we call it. We come up with funky words for things because they make sense.
Yeah, we're with you.
And I feel really bad saying this, but I'm not entirely sure that young person would be alive to this day.
That's what I thought you'd say.
And that is far, like, I know that what I do is specialist and stuff, but at that point, the way that this young person came to me, they didn't know that I was not listing myself as that sort of specialist. I was just listing myself as a regular tutor, and I was doing it because I needed some light work alongside the more intense stuff that I was doing, and we just happened to find each other, and that kept happening to me. It's why I was like, gave it in, and I was like, I'm just gonna make myself be this person, make other people like communicate that this is who I am, because like there are so many young people who get broken by these things and never ever get that opportunity to repair. And it's why I set up my company, to go from being that freelance tutor to setting up an organization where, because I felt so guilty, there was so much guilt that I couldn't help more children, that I couldn't help more families, that I couldn't share what I did with more people that needed it. And it was only people who could afford it. At that time, my fees were very high because of what I was doing and where I got to and stuff. And I felt so bad about it. And now the way that I work is I use that. I can't not do the academic mentoring, the personal mentoring. It has to be part of it, because every time I've not, you can see it. Every time I it, like for that particular young person, it took, you know, almost a full academic year, if not longer, for her to concede to actually doing it and engaging with it. And the moment she engaged with it, it changed everything, because it changes that relationship. It goes from being this distant thing to being like 7 days a week is a lot, right? You're in each other's lives, and even if you're in person, that 7 days a week is going to be online. There is no way to do that much in person, especially when it's, you know, 4 hours every evening after school while they do their homework and while they practice their instruments, and you're reminding them to have a
It
dance.
really is a governess role. It really is. I see that now, that you become part of the home.
Yeah. One of the things that one of my parents said recently was, in the way that I work, I'm not sure if I mentioned this before actually, in the way that I work, the way that I develop relationships with students and with their families, because I do require families to work with me, it almost goes through, the journey involves a level of codependence that is really quite intense at times.
Do you mind if I just suggest maybe interdependence is better than codependence?
Yeah, I think it's a bit more interdependence. Although there are
so.
elements of it that become codependence, and that's where the clinical background comes in really helpful, because where that happens, it shouldn't be codependence.
Right, you have to find that line. And again, that's about boundaries and appropriateness.
Yeah, exactly. And I think that there's a level of over-dependence sometimes for young people that are...
So that's really interesting, isn't it? Because if you think about that structure that you built around the child, you at some point you have to remove it as well.
Yeah.
So that becomes part of the challenge also, is knowing how to be wise enough to remove it at the right times, like stabilizers. But hold on a second, Jenna, because we're going to go to Julie, because it's useful that Julie's delivery model is really as different from yours as it could get. So that's really, really interesting. Julie, go ahead.
I'm not sure I can follow that, actually. I wish I'd managed to get here earlier. I want to hear everything you've got to say. The idea of immersing yourself in family life is scary, but also sounds like it'd be hugely rewarding. Not least, I could desert my own family, which at times would be a good idea. We all know. We all agree.
We all know.
Yeah, we do know. I love them dearly, especially when they're asleep. As I say, I really can't follow that. The only thing I was going to say, the only student I was going to mention was a young lady who came to me, it would have been 3 years ago. So I teach science. So she was doing foundation combined science, and she was really struggling. Oh, lovely. Dee's got one too. She was really, really struggling, and all Mum wanted was just to give her some confidence back. And I'm going to cut a very long story very, very short.
Not sure. Don't miss out the human bits, please.
Oh, well, she's a wonderful young woman. She really is lovely. She didn't sit foundation. She sat higher for her GCSE. She then sat her A-levels this year and has applied to read, when I say A-levels, what I mean is biology A-level. So having gone from not quite failing science altogether, but certainly not doing particularly well in it, she went on and decided that she was going to do an A-level in biology, and she has now applied to read psychology, or to study psychology and biology at uni this year. So she'll be going in September. And the change in her was lovely. It was absolutely wonderful. All Mum wanted was, I want her to do science. She needs to do slightly better at it. She doesn't like it. She kind of almost feels threatened by it. But I need her to have a decent clutch of GCSEs, and science is the one that, you know, she's really struggling with. What can you do? And so we spent time together. It was one hour a week. And yeah, it was very traditional. Let's do this in science today then. But somehow her confidence. So one of my things on my website is, if you can improve confidence, then the grades will automatically follow. Absolutely. Just by increasing confidence, students get more prepared to try and they're braver, they're more prepared to try and answer and be prepared to be wrong. And quite often I think they know more than they think they do, so they don't always get it wrong, they quite often get it right, and then that kind of feeds their confidence, and so they're braver the next time round, and it just helps them improve. Anyway, that's what I did with her, and she's flying, she's brilliant. And the only reason I know is because Mum came to me and went, "You've got to fix the son as well." Doesn't need fixing. His science needs fixing. And lovely, I sent out that email you do at the end of the year, like, will you be staying with me in September? And hers was the very first response I got back, and her response was, "Don't be stupid, you're stuck with us for life." So,
Yeah.
Okay, I don't get a say in this.
Isn't that yum?
Yeah.
So, but you mentioned something. Well, firstly, we all had goosebumps when you said change, that you saw the change happen, because we know exactly what you mean, and the journey that sort of, happens around that change to get there. And the way you said, so we spend time together, becomes really powerful as well, doesn't it? But Dee mentioned in the student that she described earlier in this conversation, a student who had not passed the first time, not passed the retake, and when Dee got her, she only had 6 weeks run up, and the message that she sent to Dee afterwards was, "I tried every question." And we all know what that means. Yeah, there's so much sitting behind, "I had a go at every question." And that's, I think, what you're saying there as well, Julie, that, the confidence to have a go is the differentiator. So it's not that we're building them up, with pom-poms and all the rest of it, just to make everybody happy and feel fun. It's that when you've got that place, when you're coming from that place of confidence, you are available for the rest of the learning. I was at my daughter's sports day yesterday, which she didn't come home with any medals. You won't be surprised to hear. She takes after her mother. But lots of chats with the other mums who were, ostensibly watching, and lots of sort of surprise about what happens when your children become teenagers, and how they crash, and how difficult it is to remind them all the values that were so straightforward to them when they were 9 years old. Now that they're 12, all of this, good behavior has gone out the window. And firstly, just reassuring the mums that it's okay, it probably will come back, and teenagerhood is this like tunnel of, despair, but there is light at the end of it, and all of that. But there was also a really important conversation that we had around teaching moments, and around whether or not your child is available to learn, right? So don't tell her that she can't wear that mini skirt when she's wearing the mini skirt. Tell her in the car when everyone's wearing a tracksuit and everyone's comfortable and there's nothing on it, right? All of those moments that we know in parenting become so, so heightened. And Julie, you just mentioned that you love your children when they're sleeping. We all know what you mean. There's something about that journey that we take our students on that is about preparing them for teaching moments, so that they're available when it drops in, right? So what did you just say here, Claire? When you think you've grasped teenagerhood, the next one rips up the manual and stamps on the next child. Yes, it's almost like they're 10xing each other right now. Yes, not funny. But there's definitely this process that we've all described today, and I didn't anticipate that that's what was going to happen. I thought we were just going to have a yummy conversation about yummy, sparkly children. But actually, we had a conversation about change, and about how we led that change. I'd love to hear what your key takeaways are. We've got 4 minutes left, so 30 seconds each, if you wouldn't mind. Sharona, you're first.
Just that we are really on a journey, and the relationship is so important. We're on the journey with them, so actually, as well as they change, we change as well, and we get better for the next time and the next time as well. It's really as a two-way street.
Yeah, that personal development has really come out here as well, hasn't it? Jan, would you go ahead next?
Yeah, just fabulous to hear so many stories about students. I feel like we definitely need to talk more about them in the future conversations. And also I agree with what Sharona said. It's all about the human connection with them, and also this kind of mutual motivation for each other to get better.
Yeah, I think you're absolutely right. We do shy away from talking about children, and it's because of our instinct for safeguarding and appropriateness, and just, and also not trying to be too twee. But it definitely is what really motivates us. So I think you're right. We need to bring it back into the center. Dee, you're next.
What we do every day fills our cups, gives us joy, gives us. I don't think there's words to describe it actually. The satisfaction, whatever. It just doesn't describe the feeling I get when I see the difference that I'm making.
Isn't that gorgeous? And if you don't mind me saying, your entire aspect is different to how it was at the beginning of this meeting, which does say a lot as well, right? That we're proud
and the importance of celebrating what we do. It is so important. So important.
Yeah. Especially when you find that, people still don't understand it. I speak to educationists all the time who are saying, oh, so it's not just hot housing. Claire, you're up next.
It sounds weird to say, but I think my main takeaway is that I don't really have a takeaway. Sometimes you come to a meeting with other tutors and you think, oh, I need to go and do that, and I need to go and do that. And actually, I just feel, do you know what? I can just keep carrying on doing the great stuff I'm doing, and everybody else can carry on doing that too.
Yes, just wholesome and aligned. So lovely. Julie?
I kind of agree with Claire. She's right. I don't know if there are any absolute takeaways, but also agree with what Jan said about the fact that we could carry on talking about our students for hours, and we probably should. Sometimes it feels a little bit egotistical, like, aren't I brilliant? I did this. Yes. When actually, I think we all know we don't do the work.
Yes.
Students that do the work, we just kind of help them and guide them along the way. So
Beautiful.
Yeah, they do all the work.
Beautiful. Jenna, you've got the last minute.
I agree with that. I don't really have a specific takeaway, but I think one thing that I think today has made me think is that we really do need time and space, I think, to talk about our student journeys. And it's kind of a little bit more what I imagined, like the idea of supervision to be, a bit like where we do certain types of supervision in clinical, like mental health clinic type stuff, is to kind of bring those young people case study type things forward and talk about those journeys and talk through those challenges and the ups and downs and the successes and explore that in like a kind of flowy way like we did today. I think that's important, and it's something that we don't think about as that whole overview picture of that journey.
Yeah, I think you're absolutely right. And I think we will certainly plan to do more of this. If you're not yet a qualified tutor member and you are watching this on LinkedIn, it's time to sign up because we want to share this journey with you. Happy World Tutors Day to all you gorgeous, gorgeous tutors. And let's keep celebrating together. Thanks again. Thank you, Sharona. Thank you, Jenna. Thank you, Claire. Thanks, Dee. Thanks, Julie. And thanks.